Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our special board meeting, budget hearing and executive session. At this time, I would like to call this meeting to order. And Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trish Robertson. Here. Vice Chair Maricela Pacina.
Here.
Chairman Travis Manning. Trustee Manuel Godina.
Here.
And Trustee Andrew Butler.
Here. Okay, at this time, if you'd like to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you may be seated. And Madam Clerk, could you please let us know of the board meeting agenda postings?
Chair Maricela Pacina and trustees, I request the approval of the special board meeting, budget hearing and executive session agenda posting for Monday, June 16th, 2025. The agenda was posted on Friday, June 13th, 2025 at 3:30 p.m. The agenda was posted at the following locations: the Colville School District website and the Colville District office.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would like to ask for a motion to receive the clerk's agenda notice posting.
Vice Chair Pacina, I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the agenda posting for June 16th, 2025.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. And then at this time, any trustees, does anyone have a motion to amend the agenda? Any comments? Okay, if not, then we can approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, motion passes. And we are gonna start with the budget hearing. Okay, and let's see. Is it in all of ours? Okay, all right. Okay, and so let's see. Okay, so at this time, we will go ahead and so we're having an open public hearing for our 2025-2026 budget, proposed budget. So at this time, I would like to request a motion to open the public meeting, the public hearing for the 2025-2026 budget.
Madam Vice Chair, I move to open the public hearing for the 2025-2026 budget.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any discussion, trustees? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, motion passes. So a motion and a second to open the public hearing for the 2025-2026 budget has been approved. And at this time, we will have Cheryl Sanderson, the district's chief financial officer, come up and present the information for the budget for the school year for 2025-2026. And then we will provide an opportunity for public comment for those individuals who have signed up to speak. And just please notice, everybody, that you will have 3 minutes to speak after Ms. Sanderson presents the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. As we went over last week, I'll just summarize the primary ways in which that and assumptions that were made in creating the budget for the fiscal year 26. Our projected enrollment is 5,049. As you will notice, it's down about 90 students. We tend to continue to be on a slight decrease of enrollment. And I'll show you how it's tracked over the last few years on a future screen here. Our average daily attendance is, again, for this year, right at 89.9%. So we are hoping that our best 28 weeks for this year may come in slightly higher when they finish our fiscal year. But since we've been consistently tracking about 90%, that is the number we use to generate the state revenue for this year moving forward. That shows us a calculation of 231 support units. As you know, the new legislature with the career ladder minimums created probably the biggest challenge for us moving forward. As we discussed last week, just to meet the minimums and to adjust our salary schedule for next year, it increases our salaries for certified staff by approximately $2 million. The little square on the bottom there gives a sampling of the new career ladder and the minimums for the residency rung, step one, professional rung, and the advanced professional. So those numbers were used to create a new salary schedule moving forward. I think it's important to repeat kind of the support unit comparisons over the last few years, mostly so that our public understands why maybe our state funding has been flat or even declined in some areas. In the 2021 year, obviously we remember that as our COVID year, the legislature, the State Department of Education funded us on actual enrollment rather than attendance. They continued to do that for the 21-22 year and the 22-23 year. They adjusted us back to average daily attendance for the 23-24 year. So as you can see, we have been, since we went back to enrollment, or excuse me, attendance, we had stayed right at 90%. But our actual enrollment has declined slightly. And if we go back, I believe 15 years, we've dropped about 1,200 students. And part of that is just the demographic of our community. As you know, we're surrounded, somewhat landlocked with Valley View School District, and the majority of the growth has happened outside those boundaries. Also, our neighborhoods are aging. The new subdivisions that are being built have really focused on the retirement community. You'll see they have RV garages. They're kind of focused in that way. We've seen a lot of multi-unit housing come in the last year. So we're hoping that possibly we can see additional families moving in that case. So far, we have not. And I think that is probably reflective of all of the commercial growth, all this industrial construction that we're seeing on the edges of the school district. And so those multi-units are bringing in workers and not necessarily families. So we will be watching enrollment and attendance very closely this fall, and then adjust. Hopefully, if we have additional students come up, then our support units will calculate a bit higher. Do you have any questions about this particular screen? I know it's a lot, but I think that even though the state has increased some of our discretionary spending per support unit, but because we've been in a decline position, our state funding has stayed very flat. And it certainly didn't increase enough this year to cover our additional salaries and benefit requirement for the new legislation. Here. We did work with our negotiations team to create a new salary schedule to adjust those minimums. And I've also factored in to the budget to increase our classified and administrative salaries by approximately 2% and to allow step movement for experience down if someone qualifies. We have not increased our base for quite a few years, and we feel that we need to try to absorb a bit of the inflationary increase that we've seen in the Valley as really a minimum. Our benefits, the medical premiums increased 7.1%. Our benefit committee agreed to pass that increase to our employees on the employee contribution. The district has always paid either 100% of an employee's premium or all but $25. So this year, it will increase from $25 to approximately $79 per employee per month at a pre-tax basis. And we felt that that was reasonable, given the increases that we're able to give, but also because the majority of our employees are enrolled as employee only. There are some that are family, but the only way we could keep the premiums down would be to increase our deductible. And we felt that would be more harmful then increasing a pre-tax deduction per month. So the committee, which was made up of certified, classified employees, some single, some families, were unanimous in the recommendation. So we will keep the existing plan, keeping the deductible at 1,500 and move the employee contributions up. We did also offer, agree to offer our vision insurance as optional. That will free up funds from the district. The district used to pay 100% of an employee's vision. Utilization is somewhat low. An employee can still keep that benefit and receive those benefits at their own expense of $7.88 per month. We have been offering an employee assistance plan that we found is very poorly utilized, under 5%. So that if we discontinued that and take the premiums that we're saving for vision and the employee assistance plan, we can implement what's called Ally Health. It is a much more robust plan that includes pretty much the same and increased mental health benefits, including prescription, but it also provides a virtual urgent care, which we think will have more value to our families. Because regardless of whether they're on our medical plan or not, if they're a member of your household, then you can call and get assistance through the website and talk to a physician or a physician assistant virtually, and 24 hours a day. So I think that will be a really nice increase or addition to the benefit package at no cost to the employees. And this is a package that we can offer to our substitute teachers as an additional benefit that might help us, build some loyalty and commitment on that side too. This, I know is difficult to read, is a summary just really about our proposed budget compared to the approved budget last year. I'll explain those large packets that you have on your dais there in just 1 minute. But this is the summary that then corresponds to the budget publication that was in the newspaper. This, as you will see also, it asks us to indicate the prior year actuals for 2 years, the previous year's budget, and then the proposed budget this year. What I've included in your stack, and there are some in the back if anybody would like a copy. So we provide and create the detailed budget by line item. Then we create a special report that goes to the State Department of Education, and it's uploaded through our IC. As I mentioned in the email when I sent out the 2-column, the vertical one, it translates closer to what you see every month in our budget reports or in our financials. We were able to get the State Department budget to load after some corrections with Skyward with the new IC changes. But because I didn't have a lot of time today to verify as it rolled through, it is included on your desk there as a draft. But it's extensive, goes into your salaries and budget or benefits, all categories that then translate and come down into the summary that total onto the summarized document. And as you can see, it's very heavy. So the ability to publish that for the public is difficult, but it is available at the district office if anyone would like an additional copy. Do you have any questions?
Trustees, any questions for Ms. Anderson? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's see. Trustees, anything that you'd like to discuss regarding the budget at this time?
Vice Chairman Pacina, I have
Yeah.
a question, I guess. So, and I know that Mrs. Sanderson has already addressed this at some point in time, but maybe just for the public. So we have to set a budget, then publish it. And then at some point in time, within a certain time, it has to go into the state. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we create the budget, we publish it with, along with the notice of the hearing so that anyone can join us on the public.
It's published
It was published in the newspaper this weekend.
this weekend. Okay.
Yes. Then we have our public hearing where we can take comments. And then the board must adopt the budget within, usually tonight, or within 10 days of the public hearing. Then the one with the state on the
Uh-huh.
cover, that needs to be completed, tied out to make sure everything matches, and then submitted to the state by July 15th.
Okay, so that's what I was kind of just wanting the clarification for anybody that might be listening, is that we are on a schedule that is not of our making. So that's why when we go kind of plowing through some of this stuff, we have deadlines and publishing dates. and
That's
blah, blah, blah,
correct.
too.
And one funny thing in state statute is, and it may be referenced on the state one, is that our budget hearing has to be held no later than 28 days before the meeting in July. So there's all these dates that correspond. And then, of course, we work with our local association for negotiations. We're waiting for state legislature to give us our funding. And we feel this year seemed very compressed. I know those of us working on the team, this determination of the career ladder came in and even was clarified from the State Department of Education after the legislature's recess, because the career ladder statute didn't specifically refer to how it would move forward with the rate increases. The state offered or did a mass update of 5% of salaries for all state employees. But that was misleading in that it's not for every employee. For us, it's based on the units that we generate. And then they'll apply 5% to what used to be the funding model of career ladder. Then they applied the 6359, which was in intent language, but not in statute. So they applied the 6359 first, then added 5%, and that's where we come up with our career ladder minimums. And so that was vague and not in the actual legislation. It was part of the budget request. So we had to wait for the State Department of Education to clarify for us. Mr. Tolman with the State Department clarified and said, no, this is. And JFAC clarified that although it's not specifically spelled out in the statute, it is in the intent language of the funding model. So we were very tight on time this year. But that's true. We are dictated, and even though we didn't get our numbers until late, we're still dictated to have our hearing. We tried to have our workshop last week to go over some things. And I think that actually everyone worked incredibly well together this year. I think it's important to note, and I didn't say that is that we understand based on the budget that we're recommending that we will need to go into fund balance. So we have been fortunate we've been working hard to get 3 months operating as a fund balance. And of course, our auditor is very supportive of that. But this year, given that our state funding is flat, we have to increase our salaries to meet the minimums, that we will request that we use some of our fund balance for this year and then spend the 25-26 year really evaluating our enrollment and our attendance, see what we can do to affect our attendance to get and understand why our students maybe aren't attending, but also to understand that if we're going to continue to be on a decline in enrollment, then we need to look at our staffing. We really need to evaluate that. And we don't want to do that on a short notice or quick. We really want to see which students show up this fall and spend this year evaluating and then come to the board early in the spring if we feel that we need to reduce staff. And I do believe if that's the case, we would do that through attrition. We would not be in a position where we need to reduce staff any other way. But I wanted to make sure that our public understands that too on the fund balance.
Thank you.
Okay, any other trustees, any other questions or discussions? Okay, and would like to welcome Chairman Manning. Thank you, Chairman Manning, for your commitment to the community. I know that you're running and thank you for getting here. And if you just let me know when you're ready, sir, but at this time, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone that signed up for public comment? At the back, did anybody sign up? Okay. Okay, all right, then, let's see, in that case, I don't know if, let's see. After everyone has made his or her presentation, then, I did not know if I'd like to maybe give a second, possibly to Chairman Manning. Was there anything, sir, that you wanted to add to the discussion on the budget hearing? Anything that you wanted to comment?
Thanks, Madam Vice Chair. I'm glad to be here. I know that we have discussed the budget. We've had previous budget workshops, so we're not showing up today and saying, okay, what has the district got for us today? Let's peek inside the budget and just for the first time, looking at it, and that's not true. We've been asking questions for weeks and that's part of our, our process, and frankly, it's part of our responsibility as well. As we look at the budget, we think about, for those that, don't have any idea what happens on a school at a school district or with a school board. The school board has certain powers and duties and responsibilities. And some of those powers include, I just want to read a couple of things here. This is from Caldwell School District Policy 1205, school powers and duties. So the board functioning within the framework of laws, et cetera, is a political subdivision acting as follows in the execution of its duties. A, enacting policy. B, adopting courses of study, providing instructional materials. C, employing all staff members and designating their duties. D, approving the budget, financial reports, audits, major expenditures, payment of obligations, and policies whereby the administration may formulate procedures, regulations, and other guides for the orderly accomplishment of business. Estimating and seeking to provide funds for the operation, support, maintenance, improvement, and extension of the school system. F, providing for the planning, expansion, improvement, financing, construction, maintenance, use, and disposition of physical plants of the school system. G, prescribing the minimum standards needed for the efficient operation and improvements of the school system. H, evaluating the educational programs to determine the effectiveness with which the schools are achieving the educational purpose of the school system. And then I, requiring the establishment and maintenance of records, accounts, archives, management methods, and procedures considered essential to the efficient conduct of school business. And then J, lastly, providing for the dissemination of information relating to the schools necessary for creating a well-informed public. So tonight we're here at the moment anyways, for, approving the budget. But there are many other things on our, agenda. You'll notice, oh, okay, those fall into, whether it's state statute or district policy or some combination. That's what the board does. So that is my comments. Those are my comments.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So at this time, I would like to request a motion to close the public hearing for the 2025-2026 budget hearing.
Vice Chair Pacina, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing for the 2025-2026 budget hearing.
Okay, I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. At this time, I would like to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries. So that is a conclusion of the public hearing for the proposed budget. And at this time, I would like to, I think I've been watching enough legislation, yield my being what's it called? Yield back to, even though it's not back.
Mike, walk away.
Oh, yes, I would like to drop the mic and walk away. No, I'm going to give the mic back to Chairman Manning so he can proceed with the agenda. Thank you.
Agenda is. All right, we are at B, academic updates. Is that correct?
Hey.
Oh. Thank you. We've had the hearing, now we need to approve the budget. So the item A, 2025 budgets, action item, Ms. Sanderson. Anything you want to add to that? Discussion you had previously?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an action item. So at this time I would take a motion.
Chairman Manning, I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget, the school budget for the 2025-2026 budget.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Pacina. Do I have a second?
Second.
Steve Godina. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. B, academic updates, Ms. Langen.
Chairman Manning, trustees, hello. If you wouldn't mind taking a look at the binder that you have before you. And then if you take a peek inside, you can see the table of context and contents, and here are the things we'll be going over today. Give you a chance to take a look, and then we'll add a little meat to the bones on that. So starting us off behind tab 1 is our 24-25 results for iStation reading. This is the one that our K through 3 third graders are required to take for the state assessment. The state requires our K through 3 students to be administered this assessment at minimum in the fall and spring. We do it monthly for progress monitoring. Starting up at the beginning of the year, it can take approximately 15 or 20 minutes. As we pick up momentum, it would take probably around 15 minutes or so. As you might imagine, kindergarten at the start of a school year, kindergarten teachers do a great job of getting kids acclimated to this type of assessment, but then they're pros by mid-year and then certainly going into the school year. Something to note is that this particular state assessment is changing. So it used to be called iStation. Now it's being administered by Amira. Amira won the contract at the state level. Van Buren actually was fortunate enough to be chosen at the state level to proctor. So I went over to Van Buren this year and watched it as teachers proctored this. The state, Casey Proctor, came over and was a part of it as well. And then, so with that input and feedback, Amira will be administering or be in charge of this assessment starting next year. And then something to note that I learned recently at a training is that where the window usually is open August through September, the state is now giving August and September to districts just to kind of practice and get used to it. And then the fall window at the state level will be open in October. So that's a bit of a change going into the 25-26 school year. So anyway, with that in mind, I gave you an overview. Each page is its different grade level, starting us off in kindergarten. I gave you 3 different pieces of information. So the sort of the donut looking ones at the top. I'm so sorry. Let's start at the very top where I gave you an overview of all of the skills that students are assessed in. So it's quite a range. They're called sub-skills. And students are given a little dabble of questions specific to these every month. So knowing what students are assessed, if you take a look at the first set of donuts where it says proficiency over time, I started in 21-22 and then brought it up incrementally up through this year of 24-25. Next, with the table below that, it's important to get a sense of not only our students who are proficient, but also near grade level and then below, because it kind of gives you information about students who are sort of in the neutral zone, where they have opportunity, especially looking at the grade level ahead of them, to move into proficiency. And then finally, the last table gives you a visual of where students started in September and then made incremental gains until their last time they assessed in May. So that's what all of those data charts are about.
Chairman Mary, I have a question. So thank you, Mrs. Langen. So the bottom graph, I see September, October through May. Tell me again what the upright axis is that says 0, 10, 20.
Oh, thank you. That's Chairman Manning, Trustee Robertson, that's the percent proficient
The percent, okay.
in that month, correct? Thank you for that question.
So it was like, wasn't sure what.
Mhm.
we're-
Yeah, good question.
Okay, so this whole sheet that we're looking at is just kindergarten. And they'll go
Correct.
on to the next one. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yeah. And then if you keep cruising through your binder, you'll notice first grade, it's set up the same way. So starting at the top, bless you, it will share with you the sub skills that in this case, first graders are assessed on. Starting in 21-22, where our first graders were. And then our first graders this year in 24-25. So it's not, I want to be clear, it's not the same students over time. It's first grade every year, yeah. And then looking ahead to second grade. One thing I noticed in reviewing our data for second graders, you'll notice in that middle chart, we have a window of opportunity for our students who are neutral, 31%. That's pretty significant. And so as they move into third grade next year, that is a great opportunity to capitalize on moving those students from near proficiency to at proficiency. And then finally, third grade.
Like, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
On the third grade, state average as of May 21st, 25 was 70%, 20% of CSD exceeded that percentage. 40% of CSD were within 10% of the state average. Does that 40% include the 20%, or is that
Oh, thank you. That is separate from. Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. If you wouldn't mind heading back to second grade. Chairman Manning, trustees, thank you for that little note. I suppose even back to kindergarten. So if we look back at kindergarten as of the 21st, and the reason I noted that is because the state window doesn't close until the end of May. So when I ran the data reports, it happened to be on the 21st. So on that day, I can't imagine that there's a whole lot of data coming in after that, but
For the next
just to
week.
be cautious, the state average for kindergarten was 77% and 60% of our kindergarten, our buildings had kindergarten teams that exceeded the state average. That's how that reads. And then in first grade, the state average was 64%, 40% of elementary schools exceeded that state average. And then so on. Thank you for pointing that out.
Ms. Lang, and I got another question as I think about this, and I think we've talked about this a little bit previously, but looking at the test scores for kindergarten and first grade, I mean, it kind of drops off as we get up, into second grade and into third grade. Any thoughts as to why that might be?
Yeah, I noticed in first and second grade in 21, 22, and then 22, 23, they just sort of stayed within a percentage point of each other. First grade and then second grade. And then we made an increase and then we maintained it. In third grade, first and second grade are the grade levels that give me heartburn. No, they don't give me heartburn. They keep me up at night worrying. Third grade, I was really proud of third grade. In the last 4 years, they've increased from 51 to 62%. So I think first grade had less of a slide. Typically, we tend to see a bit of a slide from kindergarten going into first, especially where they end on such a strong high note in kindergarten. And then we sort of make our way up. So first and second maintain their ground compared to this time last year. However, there are certainly the grade levels that we need to take a deeper dive into and just sort of think what we can do even better to capitalize on those students landing in the near proficiency, but not quite there yet. Generally speaking, and this isn't true in every building, but generally speaking, students tend to score not as strongly as in other areas in the area of vocabulary. And so vocabulary in large part is children's exposure to literature and text. Like there's not a core group of 100 vocabulary words, for example, that iStation might provide to say, if your students study these or if they have exposure or, whatever with this vocabulary, that will strengthen their proficiency. It's a large bank, and generally speaking, students do well if they have large exposure to literary text, as generally speaking.
And I think,
Does that make sense?
So,
Chairman Manning. I think, yeah, we see a lot of data on that and about how important it is to make sure that we read to our kids and then have them read out loud to us or
Right.
have them read out loud. It's in those first two, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, that is really, really important. And I remember, just when I was in school, when our teachers would read out loud to us for like half an hour, which, we've got so many things that we have to do, but, we don't do it a lot at school as much, but that's why it's so important to do it at home.
Right.
Really, truly important.
very
Okay,
true.
Thank you.
Would you like to move to the next tab?
We are
Okay.
ready.
We usually access or utilize Access for ELA. However, this year we purchased licenses for our students for math. We offered it through K through 3, but I'll share with a little something that I wanted to point out to you for third grade. So in looking at kindergarten, much like I did with ELA, at the top of your executive summary will share all of the things that this math assessment includes. And like ELA, we give this assessment at the top of the month, each month. And it is not required at the state level. Point that out. This is the first year we've utilized iStation Math. And so when we tested our students in September, then we benchmarked again in January and then ended in May. So we don't have longitudinal data over years because this is the first year that we've purchased iStation Math licenses for students. And then the line graph below that has a couple of different lines, and each line is a different subscale connected to math. So I know like there are variations of blue, but they include number sense, measurement, geometry, computation, and algebraic thinking. And then the black line is sort of a conglomeration of all of those subskills. And then below, you'll find a summary and conclusion with just a 30,000-foot view of that data specific to kindergarten.
Like, I have a question about the math curriculum that we adopted last year.
Yeah.
What's your take about how the staff, what are the challenges and positives or the wonderings about the math curriculum as we've rolled it out for a year now?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Chairman Manning, trustees. I'm really glad that you brought that up because, to be honest, it has weighed on me all year. And I think, well, let me start off with the positive because I'm a positive kind of girl. We just offered a PD training for both math and ELA at the end of May. The math one was specific DMT K5, and we had a lot of great feedback. Now that teachers have had an opportunity to navigate their way through the website, they now realize, things that were perceivably hard, they realize there's an easy way to access the information. We also provided training on intervention materials. Those were a big need this year, and rather than having all of that knowledge and availability at the beginning of the year, I think teachers felt a level of frustration as they went through the year, knowing what materials they needed and feeling like they needed to access themselves or go out and search. And I think on May 28th, when we had Math PD, they realized that there was more available than not. Secondly, I could have done a better job of preparing the materials that were more user-friendly. For example, I didn't know that when student manuals were being printed, that it would compromise students and teachers because sometimes they needed to interact with like a worksheet, but they had to print it again because I sent it into the copier back to back, trying to have cost savings. So that's on me. When I sent them in an effort to help and support staff, I actually made it harder because then they were having to print off materials. And I didn't know that until
The printer didn't print them front to back, or sometimes.
they did print them back to back. when really it should have been either single-sided or separate. But that correction's been made moving into next year. But that was unintentional heartburn that I'll own. That was on me. So in an effort to save financially, I didn't realize that it was making it a little bit harder. It was making it harder for people, and I didn't know that until toward the end of the year. But that's been corrected. Thank you for bringing that up.
Chairman Manning, may I add or ask Melissa to speak? So we were meeting with Heather Elscheid and Karen Cameron. We've scheduled a meeting to talk about 5-8 math. And I don't know if you want to speak to what Mrs. Cameron had asked in regards to DMT. She would like to see it. She would like DMT at Jefferson. So if you wanted to speak to
Well,
that.
Chairman Manning, trustees, Dr. French, would you mind doing that? Because I was late to
Yeah.
that meeting of coming
Yeah.
from one meeting to the next.
In for the past several, I'd say a few years, we've had Boise State math coming to help support professional development at the middle schools. And when we converted to the 5-6, Mrs. Cameron had Boise State and was introduced to DMT. So it was first for them. And then at the end of the year, she's asked for more professional development and asked that Dr. Brenda Forby come to Jefferson to support the teachers, and actually would prefer that over the Boise State support that they've had. So there is a positive. I think it was a rough start, but I do believe people are seeing that there is value in what they're teaching and how they are teaching it. The one thing I do appreciate about DMT is the professional development that's in the classroom. It's not a sit and get. You observe a professional teacher of math instructing students, and they model for you what that looks like, and then meet with you to discuss what, the nuances of the math, and then also help watch or mentor you. So as a teacher, to make sure that you're feeling comfortable in what you're teaching and the vocabulary you're using.
Yeah, and then Chairman Manning, trustees, one thing that I just remembered is that in April, when it was brought to my attention, the reason it was brought to my attention is that administrators and coaches reflected with staff, and I had them provide me feedback and reflection about what would make it easier for them for next year. And that's when single-sided versus double-sided came up. That's just one small example, but in April, I took everyone's feedback so we can be better and better serve them. I can better serve them going into the fall. Okay, before we move on, I just want to point out the significance of number sense. So if you take a look at second grade,
So we're still in tab 2.
yes, sir. Tab 2, second grade. So you'll notice that the overall proficiency, that black line, is second from the bottom, which means that the other 3 are above that. But if you'll notice, the number line below the overall average is number sense. And I just really think that that's important to point out. So iStation, whether it's math or ELA, doesn't share with districts how different subskills are weighted. So some things are worth more than others. I think that second grade, this particular case highlights the weight having a strong foundational skill in number sense, because the 3 other things are above them, but because, I hope I'm making sense, but because number sense is lower, the lowest of the 4, the overall average is much lower than maybe what you might expect. So I think it just highlights the importance of strong foundational skills in that area. And then for third grade, I thought it was worth noting, and I bolded it for you at the bottom. Well, I wanted to share these results and data in May. It wasn't required for third graders to take iStation Math because they take iSat. And so it was voluntary. And so with that said, 53 students chose to take a pass, which is fine, but it's not full and complete data because I just didn't want third graders. They get a lot on their plate. When you're a third grader, you get a lot from a state level. So this guy was voluntary. Would you like to move to tab 3? Okay. For tab 3, it is our reading, math, and science ISAT results. Again, like iStation, it takes it back to 21, 22 through 24. And then below that, the pie charts break it down by grade level. And then you'll also notice that under the little pie charts, it's the state average as well.
Mr. Robertson.
Mrs. Langen, on the ISAT reading reports, so the top block that has 2021, 22, the different school years, is that a sum total of all of the kids in Caldwell School District?
Yes, ma'am.
That's not broken down by classes. That's here's our student body. This is how they scored on the reading reports.
Correct.
Okay. So then down below is where it breaks out into, for the 1 year, where each grade is.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was reading.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then Chairman Manning, trustees, when I give data reports to principals, when we gather back together at the end of July, early August, then they'll have a breakdown by their individual. They'll get the state average, the district average, their building average, by grade level average, and then the individual teachers in that grade level. So it's kind of down in the granular level. And so, Trustee Robertson, to your point, knowing that these are the medians, either district-wide or by grade level, in third grade, 40% of our buildings were within 10% of the state average. So the state average in third grade for 24-25 was 48%, and 40% of our elementaries were within 10% of that, one within 5%. But the tricky part is that because it's an average, we might have two getting there, but then it's offset by other buildings and other factors resulting
Drop your
in.
number.
Yes, ma'am. And then in fourth grade, 60% of our buildings went up by at least 5%, 8%. Again, but the same situation, and when it's everybody's scores are thrown into the pot, it gives the median, which is what you see.
But it seems like the good news for the schools themselves and the staff is that when you talked about when they come back, it's broken down a lot more. So,
Correct.
you know, you can be in a particular school in a particular grade level and you can see just what is going on in that facility with those staff members.
Correct. And thank you, trustee Robertson. And then as we look ahead to the fall buildings, we'll be able to pull out data by student. So when we start conversations in the fall, then we're not like spending a lot of time wondering how kids are doing. They'll take a look at their spring data as we kick off into the fall of their next grade level. I don't provide the student data, but principals and instructional coaches do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Also, before we move on to math, trustees, in ISAT reading, you can see the, speaking to trustee Robertson's point of the median specific to Caldwell High, they were at 46% as they ended the year this year, which is, you know, different than the district average that I reported to you.
Chairman Manning, I have a question. Ms. Langen, can you help me understand kind of if there's any correlation between the iStation and the ISAT? Because at the iStation, like the third grade, it's showing 62% proficiency, but then when we get to ISAT, then now we're
Yeah.
at 30% proficiency. So
Yeah,
is it just different tests, different ratings that they're doing?
yes, all of the above.
Okay.
And actually, everything behind tab 3 keeps me up at night as we try and figure out next steps. But to your question, trustee Butler, iStation tend to assess fundamental foundational skills, both in math and ELA. And ISAT, depending on the variety of questions, is the application part of it. So, for example, in reading, they would be asked, starting in third grade, to read multiple passages and then asked a variety of questions based on the depth of knowledge associated with that. That's just a small example. In mathematics, it would include contextual problems with steps involved to solve that, whereas iStation math would not be as in-depth. So iStation is more foundational. ISAT is more, generally speaking, application. Does that answer your question? Because there's a big difference. I mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's, you know, having that, it's like, oh, okay, we're doing okay in proficiency with the iStation, but it's not translating to the ISAT.
That is correct.
Thank you.
That's correct. And then again, to trustee Robertson's point, where this is the district and grade level average, looking at 23-24 to 24-25, 4 of our elementaries showed an increase anywhere from, oh golly, it looks like 2, 3, 8%. So there was a bit of a shift. One, Wilson, shout out to Wilson. They had an 8% gain. But again, where all the scores are thrown into the pot, it shows us the average that it is. which gives us opportunity to, which gives us opportunity that we'll talk about in tab 7. Okay, if you're comfortable, we can look behind tab 4. Tab 4 are the results of our CEE survey. So maybe you took it as a parent every year in about March. Our CEE survey is administered to staff, families, and students. Students 3rd and 4th grade. It used to be 4th and 5th at the elementary, but then when 5th moved to Jefferson, then we administered the CEE to 4th graders and then gave a Google form for our 3rd graders to get feedback from them. So there's a bit of a change there. But if you take a look down the list, you'll see at the top that these were called 11 district goals. So when Dr. French, Julie Mead, and I met with administrators in the fall at our administrator retreat, we identified unified academic or a variety of goals that we were all going to work together. So for example, number 1, to the left, all staff believe that all students can meet state expectations, and you'll see staff CEE. So that data specifically came from a staff survey. And you'll find through the document, like the next one, number 2, that is specific to the student CEE. And then there are family CEs as well. So there are a couple surveys out there. And so these goals are specific to that cohort of people. And then to either the right or the left, it shares with you the results from 23-24 and what the results were from 24 to 25.
So how do you read the percentages that here?
Thank you. So for example, at the top, goal number 1, academic goals, the one I just read, to the right, that first pie chart for 23-24, 61%, what was in green, had positive feedback. So green would be almost always true, often true. And then the yellow, which is 31% in this case, is sometimes true. And then in the pink, 8% in this case would be, I think it's either often not true or rarely, seldom, thank you. Seldom true or almost never, thank you. So for goal number 1, the academic goal, 23, 24, 24, 25 looked the same because that data didn't change. So it was maintained at 61, 31, and 8. But then as you take a look at goal number 2, all students have access to rigorous courses and support. From the student perception, the student survey, you can take a look at the results then to the left. So it kind of ping pongs back and forth. In 23-24, it was 56% often or always, often or mostly. And that increased 3% to 59%, and then so on. With the reduction, remember when I visited about that sort of land of opportunity in yellow, so near proficient kids? It's similar in this case that yellow is the land of opportunity, where if they're kind of feeling neutral or sometimes true, then this gives us opportunity to shift them over into often true or mostly true, however it's worded. Chairman Manning, did that help? As far as knowing how to read it? Or how can I
Um,
help?
Yeah, I'm slightly colorblind, so it just is a little.
I'm sorry about
confusing, but
that.
It's all right. It is what it is.
Well, I could do a better job next time.
Well, it's okay. Mr. Robertson.
Ms. Langen, so if I'm just glancing at this without squinting.
Yeah.
So basically, in this survey, the staff and the students, is you ask the staff and then the students the same question. So going down our beige to blue to pink, the staff and the students, oh, and then the one further down has parents. So they all got this, in essence, the same question.
The same style of question.
Same style of question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So an example, thank you, trustee Robertson. So an example might be for a staff member, I provide or we provide. For a parent, it might be my student is provided or the school shares with me services that are provided to my child. And then for a student, it would be I receive.
So it's just an appropriate question for the audience.
For the
of this
audience that it's
survey.
intended for.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Were there any things on here that surprised you?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So if you, so the third pink one or the fourth one down on the left, goal number 7, response to intervention. Do you see that one?
Mm-hmm.
Has like a little stopwatch on it. So from a parent's, when a parent read the question, struggling students receive early learning and remediation to acquire skills. Last year, it was 82%, and this year, 59% of our families felt that their students received intervention. So I think as we reflect with administrators, because it's not like we just stopped doing it. If anything, I would argue that we were even more diligent about it. However, as a district and as a building, I think it gives us opportunity to think about how we could do a better job communicating with parents the services that their student receives and that we provide. Because that didn't change.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to speculate on what influenced that because it doesn't, I suppose, really matter. As we go into next year, we have an opportunity to increase our communication.
I wonder if in the timeline of this, that if any of that belief system about not getting intervention in a timely manner has anything to do with closing a school and shuffling everybody.
Perhaps, I mean, that might be one variable.
Because it's kind of like there was a bit of chaos. I mean, I'll just go with
Yeah.
that word. And unknowing. And so it's like, did my kids' needs not get intervened on? And yet there was so much going on that it may have been based on the 2 different years that what we had happening district-wide
Yeah.
might have affected the perception. Because like you said, teachers didn't stop
Right,
addressing it, but the perception is there was so much going on that might have been part of that
right.
surprise.
And this data, again, going back to the other pieces of information, our district, all the responses were thrown in the staff pot or the parent pot or whatever. And so each building received their own binder with their own
Numbers.
staff feedback, their own numbers, yeah. And so, you know, in some buildings, they might have maintained or exceeded, and that's offset in other areas, but we'll be taking a deeper dive into that. And I would suspect, I mean, I don't want to speak ahead of myself, but I would wonder if we'll keep this goal then as we look ahead to next year, so we have an opportunity to rectify that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But one thing that I did tease out between elementary, middle, and high school is on the second page. So for this particular goal, for parent engagement, parent and family participation, parents, families participate in important decisions about their students' education. So at the elementary level, this is what it was for 23-24. And then I gave you some narrative on the right. So 100% of our elementaries met or exceeded that percent positive from last year. And then again, highlighting the yellow, the land of opportunity, the neutral zone, 80% of elementaries reduced that amount. So I would predict that families who felt like it was sometimes true in 23-24 felt that it was mostly or often true this last school year. And then for our middle schools, as I mentioned, both middle schools increased their positive responses from anywhere between 3 to 9%. So moving that up from anywhere from 59 to 65%. And then additionally, they decreased their number of negative responses from a range of 14 to 19%. 19% is pretty significant to move from rarely, or I forgot the term already. What is it? The red are often not true?
Yeah.
Seldom.
Seldom true and almost never.
Yeah, seldom, yeah. And then for our high schools, the percent positive was a gain for either 17 and then 43%. A decrease in the neutral zone. And then a decrease, small decrease, but decrease in the pink.
Ms. Langen, how did you factor in the, because we didn't have fifth grade at the middle schools last year.
Yep.
Like, how did you negotiate that data?
Thank you. I didn't have the availability to pull out fifth grade data from when they were in elementary and then apply it to that same cohort of kids or families as they moved to the middle school. So fifth grade was just a part of Jefferson's data this year. I wasn't able to sort of follow the crumb trail from their life in elementary to this year. And then one thing I might mention, like, I don't want my appreciation to be implied as a put down because it's not that at all, but I do think that it's noteworthy for our high school on parent engagement that Canyon Springs had a 43% gain. And so 83% of their parents who completed the survey felt that it was often or mostly true that they were asked to participate in decision-making of their kids. And I think it's important to highlight Canyon because I know Principal Rambo and her great staff over there have really put thoughtful effort into improving this, and I thought they did a great job. All right, behind tabs 5 and 6, I wanted to include this for you because I know trustees, you've shared with me questions that you've received from the public about DMT and its correlation to state standards. And so you'll find behind tab 5 They're called focus calendars. And behind tab 5, it's K-1-2, and they're not sorted, they're separated by the green sheet. So in reading it, over on, for example, in kindergarten, over on the left-hand side where it says mathematical practices, CCSS, CCSS stands for Common Core State Standards. So in the world of Common Core State Standards, here are all of the practices or standards that this particular grade level is expected to know at the end of the year. And then going across, with that in mind, it shares with you the focus areas by grade level, as you can see. That domain and strand, again, are identifiers associated with Common Core State Standards. And then below that, it shares with you how long each unit is, the name of the unit, and sort of the big ideas that come from that unit. And so I provided for you K-1-2, and then behind tab 6 is 3-4-5. And then Chairman Manning, trustee Pacina, Vice Chair Pacina, one thing that you and I visited about was the opportunity that we had to share with parents kind of what the unit of study is. And so this year we'll be sending home to parents at the beginning of each unit, kind of an overview of the learning that's about to take place in that unit.
So Ms. Langen, then I guess the inference is that if students, the parents know what their kids are doing, like how do they help their kids specifically? Like how is that going to help them?
Yeah, thank you. Chairman Manning, trustees. So for example, if a parent of a first grader knew that their unit of study coming up, well, let's say even at the beginning of the school year, which is counting in place value, the letter includes some ideas that they could do at home, just to give parents a sense of what that means in the day and age of a first grader, because first grader now is way different than we used to be even, 30 years ago. So it will share with them what will be happening in the classroom and then what they can do to support them when the kid gets off the bus and gets home to them at night. And then gives them ideas of what they could do.
Chairman Manning? I know that like with, my 7-year-old, we got into Thea's bingo money a lot, and it was, okay, you remember your tens, 10, 20, 30, how many tens, how many dimes do you need for $1? How many nickels do you need for $1? And it made sense then because that that was also where we got, well, where the Tooth Fairy put his money.
Yeah.
And so.
Go Terry.
You
Go
know, it
Tooth
was
Fairy.
like, do you want more coin or do you want
Yeah.
less coin? But it's all the same. And so, yeah, and we were able to use that because of the counting and sequences
Yeah.
and 5, 10, 15, 20 and the 10 and 10, 20, 30, 40. And so that was good. And then we jumped into the 25, 50, 75, 100 and. he's
Big
like,
money.
Okay, yeah, that's a big coin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can see, I mean, I do, even now in the summertime, so he doesn't forget that.
Yeah.
We go over it and over it and over it and,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, I need to win some more bingo.
Right. Because sometimes, Vice Chair Pacina, to your point, sometimes when students get a coin, they think that size is relational to its value. And so when you see that a nickel is bigger than a dime, you think that it's worth more because it's bigger. So that's a great example of teaching them that that's not the case, that they have different values and some are worth more than others. Yeah, that's a good example.
How do we get our parents to do what you're doing, you know? That extra time with their kids? That is,
That's,
Can I also give another quick example? Sometimes kids who are in kindergarten and first grade, I have a niece going into first grade, and it's called one-to-one correspondence. So like if you have, I don't know, let's say pennies all on your table, and you say, all right, Miss Trace, how many do you have? She might go 1, 2, 9, 10, 30. But it's a skill to be able to point to the penny and say 1, touch the next penny and say 2, and so on. So a strategy would be to pick up the penny, 1, it goes on a plate. Pick up another one, 2, because the physical movement of moving it from one location to another helps increase one-to-one correspondence is what it's called, because you're physically having to move it from one thing to the next. That would be a parent tip that we would share.
and Chairman Manning, if I may, I think it comes down to the program that we had, Dr. French, with the kindergarten teachers, first grade teachers, about going back to playing with your kids and, you know, playing with your kids and making it fun and making it relatable to everyday life.
Right.
And, you know, but we get so busy in our lives and, you know, we feel, well, you get schooled at school. I got other things to do, but we need to make time
Yeah,
because that's our building blocks right there at the
absolutely.
very beginning. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then trustees, if you're ready, behind tab 7, I wanted to share with you some information from a professional development conference that well over 60, maybe 68, well over 60 educators from Caldwell School District, including Dr. French and myself and Julie Mead, we had a district representation. We spent 2.5 days in Boise learning about the work. It was sponsored by Solution Tree. These aren't all of the articles and information. They just happen to be the ones that I had, so I made copies for you. But I just wanted to include them to you because at the very top, for example, when it talks about 7 steps for team success, designing high-impact units of instruction. This is perhaps the inspiration or the common knowledge that we all learned together in that 2.5 days that will inspire us and give us refinement that we can look forward to as we refine our system moving into the fall. So like when we're talking about how to increase CEE data that I've shared with you, how to take a look at ISAT, those are just 2 of many examples. They, over the course of 2.5 days, provided us protocols and procedures on how to be more effective and efficient in that way. So it was worth noting because every team, Dr. French and I visited with every building and their administrators, and They just were really inspired and had great feedback and a vision and plan for how they'll bring it back to their building in the fall, all around the conversation of data. And then the overview or the guiding questions then are behind tab 8, tucked in that pocket for you. So there are 4 guiding questions, and that's kind of in the gray area. What do we want students to learn? How will we know they've learned it? How will we respond when they don't? And how will we respond when they do and beyond for extension? So this is the bones, the framework for our PLC times going into the fall.
So this came out of this program.
Yes, ma'am. I just didn't want to hole punch it because it was too nice to hole punch, so I stuck it in the folder.
Wow.
Lots of information.
Thank you. Yeah. And I look forward to the fall, taking it deeper for administrators who will then bring it back to their grade levels and staff.
Robertson.
Ms. Langen, it's like, what I see here that is appealing for me is that I think, it's a roadmap with indicators like speed limits and bumps coming and this and that. And we know we want to get from here to there, but I think having a roadmap and a path and a process is really important. And to be able to go in this moment in time, we're on track or we're falling behind. And so I think this whole big thing has got a lot of beat in it with, being able to break it down. Like you said, even though some of the numbers look kind of, we'd like them higher, but they're an average. And so you have to look at the
Yeah.
individual schools and classes. And so I think that this is, can be extremely helpful, I would hope.
Yeah. Chairman Manning, trustees, I think that the binder includes, a significant amount of things to celebrate. And then that's also married to a lot of work left to go. There's some work to be done.
Question, I was sitting here this evening trying to think about all of the developmental classes that I've had in the past for me. And it's like, what happens to 3rd and 5th graders? It just like, is there something inherent in that age that things always seem to take a dip in a couple of those, times? And it's like, because it's not like we've stopped teaching or that they're not present. It's like, what goes on in a 5th grader's brain?
Yeah,
That
correct.
the scores go.
Yeah. Well, actually, trustee Robertson, I have the great opportunity to teach 3rd grade summer school. So I'll get back to you and let you know.
Please tell me what's going on in their brains.
Yes, I'm so excited.
It also seems to prove to me, and it's like when you're looking across the 2021, 21, 22, is that there is no getting around it. COVID broke us, because everything went down.
In many ways.
And
yeah.
now if we're increasing, it's real slow. It's like COVID broke America. My opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like a band name or something.
COVID broke America. At least an anthem song.
If I could just mention, Chairman Manning, in that team learning process, I like the part, like the pink part that, like how can the team, and I'm thinking teachers and administrators, to really go through it and to really, to be sincere and not, maybe not, that's not the word, but I like when it says, who met our grade level expectations? And I would say, okay, if that person met the grade level, that's gonna be like, okay, how'd you get from point A to point B? How'd you find the treasure so fast? And then, be really diligent about, okay, who needs the extra support? Who needs the extra work and why? What's the difference between your kids and these other kids? Or, how can we, all help to make all our kids, and I know we can't, it would be great to make all our kids reach, that treasure map, but at least move forward.
Yeah.
How can we do it to increase our numbers? And as a team, and that the same thing too, what can we do differently? Because some people are stuck with, well, this is the way we've always done it. We can't, this is what's worked in the past. Let's just keep going. And we know that's not true. And so I really like that pink part right there.
Yeah, thank
It
you.
was very, it's a very team building, like, okay, we can do this if we all, and support each other with what we need, how soon we can get there and how
Yeah.
fast or how well we can do it with our kids. So
Well,
I
and
like that.
Vice Chairman Pacina, to that point, one thing that we walked away from the 2.5-day conference is that it really is about kids, to your point. So who are the kids that made the expectation? Where are they growing up as a student, and what's going on that we can replicate that?
Mhm,
And make it more collaborative and less competitive.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
I do have to say, Chairman Manning, at the beginning, I was like, oh, but thank you for turning it around to like, okay, no, not so much the big book, just the numbers.
Yeah,
It was like,
believe me.
oh my gosh, and then, but if we have a plan and we stick to it and keep, at it, I know that, because it's not, we're not going to be, the one charter school that has this type of kids, like the book that I still have yet to read, the one about we have all the blueberries. We're gonna have all the blueberries and we're gonna have
Mhm.
everybody, and how do we get there? So,
Yeah,
yeah, so it ended with
thank you for
with a good
that.
ending. Yeah. If we could follow through and get it done.
Yes, ma'am, for sure. Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Langen?
I think that's all for now, Chairman Manning, unless you have something for me.
Do you have any further questions or comments?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to item C, English language program updates. Ms. Velasquez.
Good evening, Chairman Manning, trustees, Dr. French. Thank you so much for your.
It's off, I think.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, that's a tough act to follow. Thank you, Chairman Manning, trustees, and Dr. French for your time. I am here to discuss some shifts that we are making in our English language learner program. And I would also like to review some conversations we've had as a department and as an administrators, some of our preliminary data that has come in through our access test, as well as make a recommendation about some curriculum updates and changes. And I'll get into further why I use those phrases. Okay. Beautiful, thank you. Okay. So before I begin, I would just like to start by sharing that in our department, we strongly believe that being bilingual is a superpower. And that if a student comes in and they speak a language other than English, that is a strength that they have. And we want to honor them and just build them up and use their strengths to leverage their growth forward. So I just want to start by saying that we do not see a lack of English as a deficit when students start. We as a team have been discussing some EL non-negotiables, both amongst our teachers as well as amongst our administrators. So the first thing is that we believe that all EL students should have access to Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction. So what that means is that if a student is not yet proficient in English, they still get to go to math class. They still go to all their core content classes. And if they need instruction in a specific skill that will help them achieve that grade level content. So say I am a 6th grader learning about ratios and I need to learn I need to learn some multiplication skills to help me achieve that ratio standard. That would be Tier 2 instruction. I would still have access to that instruction as well. Okay. Then our second EL non-negotiable is really about the belief that all teachers in our buildings are here to serve our students, to serve our English learners, that serving our English learners is not something that exclusively falls on the shoulders of our EL teachers. All of our teachers can use strategies that benefit our learners, such as GLAD, thinking maps, and the go-to strategies in their core content or Tier 1 classrooms. And a phrase that I've heard repeatedly is good for all, necessary for some. So that is how we feel about these strategies listed under our EL non-negotiable number 2. Now, EL non-negotiable number 3 is that we will use consistent tools between grade levels district-wide. So if I am a 3rd grader who is receiving EL services, it is not the luck of the draw as to what kind of service I'm going to receive or what kind of curricular tool I'm going to receive, whether I go to one elementary school or the other. We're going to have a consistent program district-wide that serves students in a grade level. And then our EL non-negotiable number 4 is that language proficiency will drive instruction. So not grade level or adult preference. So if I am, if I believe, oh, well, kindergartners, they don't really have to receive the service because kindergarten is a language-rich environment, in one school, but then if in another school, people say, no, I service my kindergartners 30 minutes a day. We are going to have that conversation so that we can come to an agreement and make sure that the proficiency level of the learner is what drives that decision to give the service, not the fact that that they've been in the country for 3 years or their grade level. Do you have any questions about those EL non-negotiables before I move on? I will be revisiting them throughout. Okay. Thank you. We've also been having a conversation district-wide, both amongst our administrator team, as well as amongst our teachers, about what is the purpose of EL or English Language Learner Services. When I say EL, that's just going to stand for English Language Learner. And I do apologize because there are a multitude of acronyms. So we're going to really do our best to stick with EL for now. And really, when we were discussing the purpose of EL services, we were comparing it in contrast to another academic intervention. So our EL teachers, they are really there, and our EL services are there to help our students really develop their grasp of the English language, both the social language as well as their academic language, so that they can access that key instruction in the classroom and really have the same, access that experience of education similar to their peers. So that's the purpose of EL services, is to develop their language, which includes their oral language. So often oral language is the foundation of literacy. So oral language is a big focus, especially in our primary grades, of delivering EL services. And I did want to bring that in contrast to something such as a reading intervention, which would look at the specific literacy skill that a student would need and attempt to fill the gap that that student is missing, such as phonemic awareness or another decoding skill or a fluency skill. My contrasting them is not to say that they are completely opposite things or that one student would not need both. It's very likely that we have students who would need both of these services, but simply that, reading intervention is not a substitute for EL services. Reading intervention is a little bit more targeted and specific, whereas EL services are more broadly meant to develop language ability. Do you have any questions about that? No? Okay. I will move on. And so we also have been discussing about how do we measure how our EL students are doing? How do we know that we're on track and that our program is serving our students? So in Idaho, we are a WIDA state. And what that means is that our students take an exam called the Access Test every February that tests students on their reading, writing, listening, and speaking in the English language. And students must score a score of 4.2 to exit, which is also called achieving proficiency. So one of the indicators we look at is what percentage of students exited. Oh, I turned it off. There we go. What percentage of students exited or achieved proficiency? Granted, we can all agree that achieving proficiency in any language is a multi-year process, right? I am still working on achieving proficiency in Spanish 20 years later. So I feel I'm impressed if students can do this. And so it's not likely that we're going to have high numbers of students exiting every year and achieving proficiency every year and continuing to increase that percentage, because we're getting students who are coming into our programs in waves, in different cohorts, and their journey to exit is a multi-year journey. So I just want to kind of add that context to that indicator. There is, however, another indicator that the state uses, and it is called the Growth Towards English Language Proficiency. And what that means is the state wants to see that our students are on track to achieve proficiency or exit the program. Those two things mean the same thing, within 5 years. So this chart is the visual that I need to wrap my brain around the fact that a student so if you see calculated growth year 1 in that column, that is the score that student would receive on their, that is the score that student would receive on their first access test. So if I come into the country and I achieve a 1.5 on my access test, so I'm at proficiency level 1, the state wants to make sure that by my second year, I have achieved a 2.0. So if I continue to make those gains and move across the row on that chart, I am on track to exiting the EL program in 5 years. And so the state will even put a little Y or a little N next to the student to say, yes, they're on track to exiting, or no, they're not on track to exiting. And if I go longer than 5 years in the program, I run at risk of becoming something that is referred to as a long-term English learner. Granted, again, I am a long-term Spanish learner, But anyway, I become a student who it's likely that I could be taking the access test from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, which we would like to avoid as much as possible for our students. But anyway, so this is one of the indicators that we've been looking at a lot in our program and discussing also with administrators is the growth towards English language proficiency. I do have a slide. It's not in a binder, but I do want to put a caveat that these are preliminary scores that I have gotten in the Access Appeals portal through the IC portal, and it is only data by school. I do not have district-wide data or grade level data. I will be getting that in August in our data transparency tool. So I just want to highlight that before I go on to the next slide. Okay, so the blue is the percentage of students at each, and I apologize because that is hard to read, but the blue is the percentage of students who achieved this growth to proficiency in 2023, 2024. So that means they met their growth target. And the yellow is students who achieved that growth, that proficiency growth in 2024 to 2025. So just give you a moment to soak that in. You will see that elementary schools do tend to have very robust growth. And that is in part just due to the pattern of language acquisition. When we're very young in elementary school, we tend to grow very rapidly in acquiring a second language. And it can be a harder road in secondary. That's why it's always good to start a language earlier in life.
Chairman Manning, may I ask a question really quick?
Yes.
I had the privilege to go to Sacagawea at one of at the end of the year programs where they were giving kids little awards for attendance. But in that assembly, they also had the kids were graduating from EL programs, and there was a lot of little kids. And so is this what
Yes.
is this what it is? And it was impressive because, I mean, I thought, oh, because I was thinking as a kid who, the overachiever, okay, what award can I win now?
Mhm.
Like, okay, what is that? And who, what are they doing and then I noticed that it was EL and I thought, oh, so they must be getting tested for being able to speak the language and they are where they need to be. And it was in all grades,
Mhm.
kindergarten, first grade, everything. Every grade had their little award and, and I wish it would be even, like who, the kids that won being in school for attendance, right? Because we're working on that, for attendance awards as much as the EL awards. But it was interesting to see. So I saw that firsthand, like, oh my gosh, we got kids that are moving up, but I just wondered, okay, because that wasn't available when I went to, that was a long time ago, but so it was interesting, and now it's making sense.
Yes, and that's a practice that we have at a number of our elementary schools where students, they often receive a certificate. Sometimes their parents are invited and they have a graduation ceremony when they exit the program. And then they also, a lot of teachers honor students in a similar fashion, just when they make large growth on the test as well. So thank you for sharing. So just absorbing that data. We have been talking a lot in our EL teacher PLC about working together better and kind of continuing that work that was discussed, that Ms. Langen discussed, that we reviewed at the Summit PLC conference, where we would like to look at data together and support each other district-wide to make sure that we are really using the best practices and best tools to continue this growth amongst our students. So I did also have the opportunity to hear about and witness firsthand some challenges that our teachers had. So we do have, in the last couple of years, we have gotten a very large newcomer population. And the term newcomer refers to students who are in their first academic year in the United States. It has nothing to do with status, you could be born here, but just you're in kindergarten and this is your first year learning English. And so then you would be categorized as a newcomer. So we do have a large number of students who are newcomers, and we did not have a specific curriculum that was appropriate to newcomer students. So we do have curricula that were just focused on other topic just at a much higher level that was beyond the grasp of some of our newcomer students and not what they needed in those first few months of being in school. So we had lots of teachers who were creating their own materials or researching things on Teacher Pay Teacher or hunting down free or cheap curricula online. And when we get into that territory, we end up getting varied results throughout the district. So that is a challenge we had. And just in general, we did have widely varying curricula used between schools. And then our most effective and widely used curricula that was very exciting. Our most effective and widely used curricula is actually wildly out of date and is not aligned to the WIDA 2020 standards. So the consortium that develops the access test, they are called WIDA, they come up with specific English language development standards. And so they have standards in the areas of the language of reading, the language of science, the language of math, etc. So they have 5 areas where they want to grow students' cognitive academic language. And our curricula is not in line with these new WIDA 2020 standards that have come out. However, the curricula that was being used was also a hot commodity. Our teachers did not have enough, so they were making copies of copies and sending each other copies in interdistrict mail. And our students were also receiving packets of copies instead of workbooks, or our teachers just did not have enough books to use effectively. So I do have a proposal or a recommendation that I would like to bring to you. But first, before I get to that, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I did want to discuss again that language proficiency level will drive service delivery moving forward. So across the top, you can see, across the top, you can see different levels of, so as we move from left to right, we're starting with students who are really just entering their English language journey. So if I'm a level 1 entering, I am just starting to use my survival language. And I gain skills as I move to the right of this chart. So if I am a level 5 or a level 6, I have the skills I need to participate fully in my class, right? My language is, I can fully participate in English instruction. And granted, when students are at a level 4 and they have an overall score of 4.2, I do just want to reiterate that that is the cut score for an access test when students can exit from the program. And so we have been looking at how can we create a general guideline for our students so that they can receive all the things they need, because there's such limited time in the school day and our students need access to Tier 1 instruction. They need access to Tier 2 instruction. We also have students who are dual identified as receiving special education services and EL services. And then we also have, students who are really ready to spread their wings and fly, but maybe their general education teacher just needs a quick consultation with their EL teacher. So we wanted to create a framework for how those services could be delivered based on that language proficiency level. Granted, the key was that we wanted students who were at level 1 and level 2 to, regardless of their grade level, they can receive targeted English language development instruction. And then as they move up the spectrum, we would like administrators with EL teachers and other teachers to be addressing what's the skill that the student really needs to go to the next level. Do they need to work on decoding? And what would be the best adult for that student to work with? You know, it does not necessarily have to be the EL teacher. It could be, but it doesn't have to be by nature of the student having that label. Do you have any questions about that? Am I clear?
Chairman Manning, I have a question. Ms. Velasquez, I was curious that kind of the balance between, because most of this is taking the student out of the classroom, correct? In this, like the entering level 1 and 2, right?
For a targeted amount of time, for a brief period, we did not specify a specific amount of time that would take the student out. But typically our students would need at least some time during the week with the EL teacher to really review, especially if they're coming and they don't speak any English at all. They will need some time with the teacher to get caught up.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'm wondering is that balance between having them in the classroom versus having them with the EL instructor
Mhm.
and then if they're in the EL, then they're missing that tier 1 classroom instruction and kind of that balance, you know. I guess.
Yeah, that is really the challenging calculus that I think keeps teachers and administrators up at night. My understanding, we would, as much as possible, like to avoid that pullout occurring during tier 1 instruction, but during some other portion of the day.
Okay.
That's also not lunch or recess.
Definitely.
Yes, but it certainly is a challenge. And that's also why we want to make sure that our time in the EL classroom is very targeted to the language that students need to continue making progress. And that we have the best curriculum materials we possibly can so that our students are really receiving high quality instruction. We are very lucky in this district to have very experienced and knowledgeable EL teachers who are very skilled and can really work with quite a range of things and develop a meaningful and impactful lesson. But I would like to lift the load off their shoulders of having to develop so many things themselves while still respecting their craft, of course.
If I may, Chairman Manning.
So-
Yes, going back to your non-negotiable, right?
Mhm.
About tier 1 and tier 2. So,
Yes.
you know, talking about how all the students have access to tier 1 and tier 2, meaning that, you know, they can still, you know, be in a classroom with kids that, you know, if you're learning history or,
Mhm.
you know, in the English class. And one example for me, and it was huge, was the Passion Project at the high school for the freshmen. And, you know, I'd been in an assembly, you know, the week before, and I thought, boy, these freshman kids, they're tough. And then we had the Passion Project, and I said, all right, okay, let's talk to some of these kids and see about their project. And I was surprised at how many amazing projects there were in Spanish.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, this kid got it. He got, you know, what he needed to do. And their art, their passion, how they
Mhm.
spoke about it was, that's what they needed to do. I mean, that's where that poster came out from, you know, their passion. And I could see that because I've done some judging on the History Day projects, and I could see, you know, how they were getting, okay, you've got to have this, and you've got to have your title, and, you know, just the rubric of kind of for a freshman to get prepared for history, for, you know, junior history day. And I could see that they were getting it, and I was impressed, but really impressed that they understood it in Spanish and the amazing way that they explained it in Spanish. And I thought, wow, if everyone else could see, could understand what these kids have done, they'd be so impressed. So yeah, I think we're going the right direction. I really
Thank
do.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you. And that brings to light a key point that I would like to make sure that everyone in our district understands and was exhibited in what you saw with the Passion Project is that it's not a first I learn English, then I learn content. It's I'm learning both at the same time. Because our students, they have so much to learn. And so if they're also learning English here, but they have to demonstrate proficiency on another standard, let's let them show their strength and their knowledge in their native language
Mhm.
so that we can honor them
Yeah.
in that capacity. Thank you.
Good.
So this is one aspect of our proposal for how EL services would be delivered. Do we have further questions about it? No, okay.
Penny?
Mr. Robertson.
I just have a curious question.
Absolutely.
So often when we're talking about EL in the Caldwell School District, we're talking about kids that speak Spanish learning English.
Yes.
What are our do we have other students with other language in our school district, like from Yugoslavia or, how many other English learning kids do we have that are not learning English from Spanish? They're learning English from Portuguese or whatever.
Excuse me. That's an excellent question. So Caldwell is very overwhelmingly, our students do speak Spanish, but we do have some students who speak Ukrainian or Russian. We do have students in our district who speak Arabic or Farsi as well. We do have a few students who speak Swahili or other, Swahili is more of like a lingua franca of East Africa, but we also have students who speak some dialects from Africa. And we have, I believe, one student who speaks Chinese. So we do have a bit of a smattering of other languages, but it is quite predominantly Spanish. Whereas Boise School District has, I believe, over 100 languages represented amongst their student body. So we're not quite there.
Well, I knew that some of like Boise had a lot of kids from
Mhm.
many, many countries and languages and stuff. And I just wasn't sure because, again, we are so predominantly focused on the English learner that is coming from a Spanish background. But I was curious, so it's fascinating to know that we have that many.
Yes, and the prediction is that as the cost of living continues to rise in Boise, that we anticipate that there will be more folks who come out this way to Caldwell. And so we may see a greater number of languages spoken in our district at some future point, is the prediction that I hear.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it was a curious question for me because I just wasn't aware of how many others we might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so,
Got a question as well.
yes, sir.
This one may be a tough one. So what is your understanding of the curriculum adoption process in the Caldwell School District?
My understanding of the curriculum adoption process in the Caldwell School District is that I need to have a committee with 50% parents and 50% educators, and that we need to review and discuss curriculum together. And then I come and make a recommendation to the board.
I'm
Is
just
there a
looking at-
bit that I am missing?
No, I was just trying to look up the curriculum adoption policy. Does anyone know what it is? I don't. That's what she said.
I did just look at the policy about 5 minutes ago. So,
She's a step ahead of you.
Do you know what the policy number is by chance?
oh, no, but only one policy showed up when I searched curriculum adoption.
Mhm.
But I will emphasize that one of these is an update.
Mm.
Because it's just
Notice
the,
that in quotations.
yes, well, because it is in print and it is the same, it is like the grandchild of the curriculum that is currently in use. So it is the same curriculum, just what is in print.
Mhm.
So
Does the policy, I believe, when I read it a while back, the policy may have stated that, that there's, like, I don't know if it said if there are different curriculums, if you can like, choose different curriculums and then, and then say, okay, which one is the one that, the one that's vetted by the parents and the teachers and, yeah, so not just the one, but different ones.
a variety, I see.
Variety. Mhm.
Okay.
Everything else you said, I think, is what I had read.
I don't know, does anyone have the policy number by chance? 25, thank you. My search is not, I searched that key term and policy adoption didn't come up. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know, those of you who have access to policy 2520, what do you think? Have we followed the adoption policy process?
Well, it
Policy
sounds like she answered it
25.
good.
But did you have a committee?
I know, but do we follow the process? We're
Yes,
just
we did
double
have a
checking. We've had
committee.
some challenges with this previously. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I just want to make sure.
Chairman Manning.
Absolute, sure, yeah. Trustee Robertson.
Can we ask what your process was to come up to these that we see on our screen?
Okay, well, we have been discussing a variety of curricula throughout the year. And we wanted to look at all three of these curricula that you see here in our committee. And so we did have teachers and myself recruit parents to participate. We had representation. We had 2 parents from Van Buren, as well as a parent from Sacagawea attend, as well as educators from Van Buren and Lewis and Clark were also in attendance. And I have some sample materials. We looked at sample materials here. We discussed some of the challenges that we have had this year. And we also looked through their digital and online platforms and reviewed some of the materials that that are very student facing. So these curricula that we are looking at are not online digital programs, but they do have digital platforms that provide resources such as audio clips or video that students can consume, and then they use that to interact with their book. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So we discussed that. We got parents' feedback, and now I'm meeting with you.
After I said that, then Trustee Pacina pointed out that in the corner, it says reviewed in a committee of 50% educators and I'm trying to read.
50%
50%
parent.
of parents. So thank you. I asked a question that was already answered on the screen.
I'm wondering, is one of the policy that I had read prior, said that, to have like the curricula at, the district office, so the public, if the public wanted to come
Okay.
and see it. I don't know if there was a timeline. I can't remember how much the timeline was. And I don't know if it was specific to like core subjects or,
Okay.
and if this falls under something different, but I think that was one of the criteria on some of it, but yeah, I'm gonna wait till, I was gonna ask more questions, but I'll wait until your presentation. You may answer my question in your presentation.
So you would like me to continue?
Is that okay
Is that okay? Or do you need more time to review the policy?
No, yeah, just keep going. I'm looking through the
Okay.
policy. Thank you.
And if I need to do more work and come back, I will.
Okay.
Okay, so this is new Cornerstone. It is what I like to call the grandchild of Cornerstone, which is what our teachers are using now. And we had a checklist as parents and educators of things that we wanted in a curriculum. Our students, when they come to us in EL services, we're pulling them from somewhere else, as Trustee Butler emphasized. So we want to make sure that the phrase my teachers used was rinse and repeat. We want something that can be very targeted and done in a very quick, intense fashion that has a predictable structure. So that is something that we were looking for in all of our curricula. We also wanted to make sure that really key important vocabulary and grammar was discussed. And that's vocabulary that is both what's called BICS, so basic interpersonal communication skills, as well as that academic language and cognitive language was covered. We also wanted to make sure that our students had the opportunity to practice speaking, listening, reading, and writing, which are the 4 domains covered in the WIDA Access Test and just the 4 language domains that we need in our classrooms. And we also were interested in having updated digital interfaces where we wanted to make sure that students were not being given a packaged computer program where they could just sit on the computer, but that there are digital components that teachers can use in a guided, direct instruction fashion to really enhance what students are doing. And I would, if you'll humor me, I would like to play you one of it's for our first graders. This is targeted towards 1st through 4th graders who have a few months of skills under their belt already. So this is not a newcomer facing curriculum. This is for our students who are, maybe they're coming back. They just started in March or February of this year, and this is as a kindergartner, and they are starting as a 1st grader in August. And so this would be the opening video that they would watch and discuss with their peers, if you can humor me. It's only 3 minutes. Okay.
How will you change this year as you meet new friends? Your first day of school is exciting, but it's also scary. This is Walton Elementary in England. Today is the first day of school.
Put your hand up if it's your first day at school. Put your hand up if you're excited. Say good morning.
The class are learning each other's names.
We're going to just go around and introduce everybody now. Wave to everybody and tell them your name.
This is Beth.
Let's go next, Beth. My name is...
Beth can't say her name.
Piece of chicken, please.
Beth is shy.
Say good morning. Beth.
But Layla likes Beth.
Beth. Beth. She's not talking.
Layla helps Beth to speak. Now Beth has a friend, and she is happy. She likes school. At school, you meet new people and learn new things.
I want some milk.
You learn your ABCs and how to count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12.
You learn how to play with others.
I just swapped the lightning.
And you learn how to respect each other.
Like this house.
Leah is building a sandcastle.
Oh, take the roof off.
She's sad because the boys have messed it up.
Oscar,
Mrs. Armitage gets the boys to say sorry.
is that nice that you've made the girls feel sad? Was that a good thing to squash a house that someone's made? So what do you need to say to the girls? Oh, look, very nice.
School can seem scary at first, but because of friends, lessons, and play, you soon learn that school is fun. Just like Beth and Layla did. How will you change this year as you meet new friends?
Thank you, Caleb. And you may notice that this is set in the UK, and there's quite a bit of British English spoken in the background, but the videos peppered throughout the units are they're from all over the world. I was also reviewing one earlier set in New York City, but the narrator will always speak in American English. So I just want to put that caveat there. And so this is how the teacher would open the unit, and then the students would discuss, you know, the big theme of how will you change? And then throughout the following weeks, students have readings about with the theme of change. So how do animals change? And again, how will you change in the year? So that's just kind of and then also students have access to audio clips that they can review every lesson on similar themes. So students are practicing that listening piece as well before they go and create a thinking map or dive into reading or dive into vocabulary and grammar. And I do have a sample textbook to provide you, but it is still on its way. So should you call me back, it will be here. Do you have questions about New Cornerstone? This is the update. Okay. This is the one that I called an update. Okay.
So I'm just looking at the policy here.
Mhm.
And so I'm looking at 1.2, talking about the curricular committee would be responsible for recommending textbooks and major instructional materials. 1.3, the board shall establish a curricular materials adoption committee for the purpose of advising the board on the selection of curricular materials for use within the district. So my question to the board is, have we established a curricular materials adoption committee for the purpose of advising us?
We have not.
Okay, that's her question. Um,
And I wonder if I may,
Yeah.
I know that when I first got on the board, we used to have a bunch of committees. Or I was excited because I was like, okay, I would like to be on this committee, this committee, this committee, but it never really like,
I was on the
I know.
policy committee, but they kicked me off.
okay, but
And Chairman Manning and trustees, I do want to turn to Idaho Code 33512A. I do think that's important, and there are multiple committees that look at this. So the board just approved the adoption of Tools of the Mind for preschool. And they followed the same process that's in Idaho Code 33512, which is to make sure that such a committee shall contain a membership of at least half of which is a persons who are not public educators or school trustees, and shall include parents of a child or children attending a school or schools within the school district. All meetings of the committee shall be open to the public, and any member of the public may attend such a meeting and file written or make oral objections to any curricular materials under consideration. Each school district shall have on hand and available to the public the titles, authors, and publishers of all curricular materials being used in the district. The public has the right to inspect the instructional materials, accept students' tests used in district schools. So it does say that the school district shall appoint a curricular materials adoption committee. I would say in the past, it has fallen to me to oversee that and to go ahead, like for Dawn Spurlock, to go ahead and have her proceed and move forward, and making sure that half of those members are parents of children who attend the schools and will be using the product.
Mhm.
And same with Ms. Velasquez. When we visited about this, we wanted to make sure that half of those children or half of those individuals were parents whose children would be using those materials, and then half would be the teacher or an educator. But I do want to make sure such a committee shall contain membership of at least half of which is a persons who are not public educators or school trustees. And that's probably why you have not been asked to serve on an adoption committee, because that's the new state, that's the code. I mean, I do believe Ms. Velasquez followed the district policy as per under my guidance and ask her to make sure she had it lined out with those individuals as per state code.
Chairman Manning,
Trustee Butler.
there's also a policy 2100. This is actually 2100P for the curriculum development and assessment procedure. And as Dr. French was saying, actually in 1.3 and 1.4, speaking about how the superintendent designee shall establish a curricular materials adoption committee to review materials and resources necessary for development and implementation of the curriculum and assessment that are consistent with the goals of the education program. Such a committee shall be comprised of teachers, administrators, and patrons, I think referring kind of to that split of half and half. So there are other policies.
No, that's
It
good.
seems like that there's some overlap, yeah.
Okay.
That might not be as clear as we think.
No, that's good. I just want to make sure that we,
Mhm.
follow the policy and there's wisdom in doing that. And so I think it's helpful for all of us to understand what the policy is and then understanding, how do we follow it? How do we implement it and so on. So, other comments or questions? Ms. Velasquez, anything else?
She's still.
Just still continuing.
I
Okay.
still have a few more because we did review multiple curricula.
Mhm.
We just wanted all of them. So, so these are my recommendations.
Okay.
So this, again, they all serve different purposes because again, our students have a wide variety of needs and they cannot be served by one curriculum, unfortunately, as much as I have searched. So again, as I wanted to reiterate, this is for students who already have some linguistic ability, some English ability. Our next curriculum, this is a newcomer facing curriculum. So these are for students who are coming in and they need to learn that survival English so they can navigate school. And also this is specifically targeted towards kindergarten students because at this time we do not have any appropriate curriculum for kindergarten students. Teachers have been very creative and resourceful in creating their own materials. But we have also been heavily reliant on a computer program to also provide that instruction to our kindergarten students. And this would, again, use digital enhancements that are similar to the ones that you have seen previously with the other curriculum as anchor videos about fun, high engaging, high interest topics with that academic vocabulary. This curriculum also meets our checklist that we were looking for of that rinse and repeat, targeted, intense instruction that can be provided quickly in an intervention setting. It uses Realia, so it's not a lot of cartoons, it's pictures of real life that will build our students. It will open and expand their world. I do want to emphasize this is created by National Geographic. So I will actually come and pass around the kindergarten curriculum. I apologize, I don't have enough copies. Trustee Butler has the first copy, so that would be the level 1 that our students would start with in kindergarten, and they would work their way up to level 3. So there's a heavy emphasis. So this is for students who are still building their literacy skills. There's a heavy emphasis on listening and pointing to items in the picture, and students can just always know the structure of the lesson because the lesson flows in a very predictable way, which we have found is very beneficial to students because they don't need to guess what's going to happen next because they know the routine of the classroom. So, for example, one of the first things students learn are things like sit down, stand up, bathroom, water, open the book, close the book. Just those things our students really need to survive in school. And this will be provided in a guided, directed lesson from a teacher versus a computer-based program. So that is the kindergarten newcomer curriculum. And then I will just move on to this is a very similar curriculum with a similar structure, but is more appropriate for students who are newcomers in grades 2 through 4. And again, it is very teacher-led and teacher-guided. It has that structured rinse and repeat format that we were looking for. And again, provides students in multiple times a week to have practice in the domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. I will pass around my one sample. We only wanted one volume, one level, because once students have mastered this level, they are ready to then go to the new cornerstone.
I'll tell you, the photographs in these are amazing. Here we have a picture about weather.
The parents in the committee felt that the pictures just kind of naturally sparked conversation.
So these are workbooks. So because it looks like this one that the kids could draw, or are you going to be reprinting it?
So we will not be reprinting them because that has been, well, our students are kind of used to having packets of copies of copies of copies. So that would be the student textbook actually that you're looking at. You'll notice that paper is very glossy and is challenging to write on. There is a workbook that I do not have right now that we would like to provide students with that would be in black and white and have that more typical paper for writing on a pencil. So that would not be the consumable, that would be something we would want to maintain that's in your hands. And so something that I did just want to bring to your attention is that when we use something like a computer-based digital program, those are digital licenses that we have to renew every year. And so that's a recurring cost that we are committing to. Whereas in a series of textbooks, that's there is an investment up front, but then each year we would be purchasing the workbooks for students versus costly digital licenses. And with this curriculum that you're looking through now through National Geographic, we really only need the teacher to have a digital license so that the teacher can play the videos and the audio clips. The students don't need a digital license. So you may have some quotes in front of you, but that would be taken off of any purchase we would make. Because I do believe that there's value in students interacting with textbooks and with books and things they can hold in their hands as well as their peers and their teacher.
Chairman Manning, I've got a question.
Trustee Bella.
Velasquez, I was curious, we were talking about these in the curriculum in terms of grades, but I remember at the beginning, you're talking more about the levels. And so I was curious how that worked and kind of what the breakdown is of where we're seeing the most students enter. Is it really at that, kindergarten, first grade? Are we having more kids in the middle schools and high school? So kind of what that breakdown of structure is.
That's an excellent question. So we have to account for both because yes, we don't want to just give students services by grade level, but we do also want to give them materials that are age appropriate and also level appropriate. So something that's happened not in our district, but in other districts is you're a fifth grader and you're a newcomer. Oh, you're going to go to the kindergarten classroom and you're going to sit in kindergarten and use kindergarten curriculum because they're working on the skill you need, right? So that's something that we want to avoid. We want to make sure that students are engaged and honored by having materials that are age appropriate. And so that's why but also by skill. So this that you're looking at now, it's really for students in older grades who are maybe at that more newcomer skill. So it's that delicate balance of finding the right age level and the right skill level book for them. And that is partly why it is challenging to find one encompassing curriculum for all students in grades K through 12. And then to answer the second question that you had about where are we seeing the biggest breakdown of students, we actually have very, very large numbers of students who are newcomers at that kindergarten, first grade level. And so when we are not investing in our kindergartners, that is a year lost in elementary school that is perhaps contributing to students not achieving proficiency before they get to middle school. And once we have left elementary school, it is much more challenging for our students to achieve proficiency, is what we are seeing. And that is not a Caldwell specific thing, that's a nationwide thing.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We do, and I would be happy to come back at another time and discuss what we're doing at secondary and our program that we're using at the secondary level. Yeah.
So Ms. Velasquez, I'm looking at the cost. Is it $20,011.75? That's the total cost for what you're asking for. Is that correct?
For one of the curriculum, yes, that is for the new Cornerstones curriculum.
Got it.
Granted, we can always look at the numbers of materials we're ordering and make sure that we are not ordering student licenses, because really only our teachers need the digital license.
So what is the total ask then for all the curriculum pieces?
It's quite steep. It's about around 30,000.
So depends on how you look at it, I suppose. Yeah.
I'm paying for it.
You know, the equity out of your house.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the trustees?
Were you finished with the?
I am all done.
Okay, okay. I didn't know.
Would you like me to go? Are you done with me is the question.
The action item is to
Accept it. So, okay, so how, I know that there's a bunch of numbers here in my screen. I made it bigger, so there's stuff going off the edge. So what is what did she say, the total amount? 30,000?
Something.
Okay, all right. And I think my question would be, do we have the funds, Ms. Sanderson?
I would, Chairman Manning and trustees, some of this funding or most of it will come out of migrant funding out of federal programs.
Okay.
So it's just part of the migrant program,
Mhm.
EL program. Ms. Velasquez. Oh, EL.
Mhm.
Thank you.
There's money in that.
Oh, from the federal, yes.
Director Mead and I would be working together to determine what federal fund it would be coming out of, but this would be paid for by federal title funds, which could be a mixture of Title 1A, Title 1C, or Title III funds. But I really need Director Mead is the one who is really
Where is she?
managing that.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Chairman Manning, I have a follow-up to
Butler.
that. Is there anything that's overlapping? Are we canceling a subscription to something that this will then take a place of? Is there kind of a cost balance there somewhere? Or is this all new money?
We have looked at canceling one of our digital programs that we're using. It's called Imagine Learning. We have about 50 licenses right now that we are leaning on very heavily for our students. And that is really doing the heavy lifting for our newcomer curriculum. That's probably me holding that. So that is what we have been doing, is we've been using a computer-based program to drive our instruction of newcomers. Granted, it's a drop in the bucket compared to this cost. So.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Velasquez? This is an action item. So I would accept a motion at this time.
Chairman Manning, I would like to make a motion to accept the English language program for the new curriculum for EL. Yeah, English
Okay.
language.
All right, motion by Vice Chair Pacina. Do we have a second?
Second.
Trustee Butler. Any other further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item D, the master agreement. Dr. French.
Chairman Manning, trustees, so as of this afternoon, I received it, I think we all received an email from Joy, CEA, that the CEA has ratified the 25-26 master agreement. So we are bringing it to you. Our recommendation is to approve the 2025-2026 master agreement.
Chairman Manning,
Trustee Butler.
at this point, I assume I should recuse myself for this item.
Okay. You are recused.
You just wanted to get a walk.
Okay, any questions about the master agreement from the trustees? If not, I would take a motion to act on this agenda item.
Chairman Manning, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 master agreement.
Okay, motion by trustee Godina. Do we have a second? Yeah, second. Trustee Robertson, thank you. Yeah. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the 2025-26 master agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're moving along here, people.
Yeah.
We've seen you.
Where's he at? There he is.
He's coming.
Okay, item E, pay to play fees for 2020, 25, 26.
Yeah, Chairman Manning.
Dr. French.
Sorry, Chairman Manning, trustees. The request was made to ask John Halleck to be here this evening to speak about pay to play. He was not able to be here. He can come in July. He did send a couple of emails, so I will just share with you what he has shared. The question was, I asked him if a school district doesn't have a pay to play, do you know if they charge a fee? And these are his responses. It depends on the sport, but yes, they require fundraising from their parents and students. Some programs do it differently, but rather than sell cards and bring the money in, they will charge the family, say, $500 to $1,000, and then give them the cards. I think, hopefully you understood, they're just like coupon off cards that people sell. Oh. Like a fundraiser, okay. And tell them to go make their money back. That being said, each district handles it differently. Caldwell covers some costs for our families that other districts do not cover. Transportation is a big one. And then he followed up with another email, pay to play, Valley View, Ridgeview, pay to play. No, they do not have it. Transportation, they don't charge, and they don't charge non-traditional students. Nampa, they do not have pay to play. They don't charge for transportation. They do charge a non-traditional student $175 per sport. I'll share this email with you. CUNA, pay to play, it's $105 per sport for district students. They don't charge for transportation. A non-traditional student, $360 for charter school students and $0 for a homeschooled student. West Ada, pay to play for the the district student, it's $110 per sport. And then no cost for transportation or for non-traditional. Boise's, there are no fees. Emmett, pay to play, it's $50 per sport for the district student. And transportation, they don't charge for that. And nothing, they do not charge for non-traditional. However, they are potentially adding a $350 fee for football and a $250 fee for other sports for the non-traditional student. And then Middleton, the pay to play for all students, the district students, $80 per sport. So that was information that he shared with me. And West Ada does have a policy that they do not transport for extracurricular activities after 4 p.m. So maybe just giving you an overview of what's happening throughout the Treasure Valley. And I will comprise those and I'll copy paste into one email. But if you would like Mr. Halleck to come and speak to it, he can't be here until July.
I don't know, what do you guys think, trustees? Do you feel like you have enough information? Do you want to have a conversation about the fee structure? Do you like the fee structure? Do you not? Do you want to change it, tweak it, pop it, twist it? Table it?
Yeah, all of the above.
Yes.
I think it would be nice to have some kind of recommendation with actual numbers. Unless this is it for what we're looking at. So I guess it would be nice to have Mr. Halleck be able to present some sort of specifics.
I mean, are the specifics the proposed policy as is, or you want some altered specifics?
I guess the specifics on the cost, actual changing the cost, or again, having some dialogue on what those would go to and how and things like that.
I think it would be, if I may, it would be nice to get, everything like on paper, just to see, Dr. French, what's the common, what's the most used fee schedule, or and then just kind of weigh it with what each, every trustee's idea is, or how they feel about it, and have a little bit more, and have Mr. Halleck present possibly. I know that we did have public comment, and one of the things that stood out from the public comment from Mr. Matt McDaniels was that it would be nice to put the decision in policy with rationale for the fees and their intended purposes. That way, future iterations of the Board of Trustees don't have to guess or wonder the why behind the board's decision, and, actually set it and put it in policy, possibly. That would be, so it wouldn't, like, okay, well, this year we had this, next year we're gonna have that, and so it's more or less set in stone if we could. And obviously, we have the ability to change it as well if we become one of the richest districts in the state of Idaho. Yes, I had my.
Well, trustee or Chairman Manning, trustees, I'm happy to put together a committee with a couple trustees on it.
Yeah.
With Mr. Halleck and maybe a parent, some parents of athletes.
Yeah.
If you're interested.
Sure.
It would have to be quick because fall sports start August.
Yeah, we'd have to, if we put it into policy, we'd have to probably waive the second reading and that kind of thing, and which we could do if we decided on something quickly.
Well, I believe this was actually in the handbook, not in a policy, so it would actually go out in the student and athlete manual, not actually in a policy.
And
And
Chairman
when are
Manning,
those printed, do we know?
Sorry, Chairman and trustees, I have looked for policies in other districts and I've seen them in their athletic handbooks or on their athletic page.
But not in the.
I haven't seen it in a policy.
Mm-hmm.
So I would
Maybe
have to
discuss
do
the-
more work
yeah.
on that and ask Mr. Halleck.
Mhm.
Because, well, and I will say this, so the athletic manual that you approve it, it is considered to us it's a policy that the board's approved, that student athletic parent manual that Mr. Halleck presents.
And we approve that every year, right?
Yes, you do.
Mhm.
And that's,
So maybe that's where this.
that's where that, I believe that's last year, that's what we did because of the supplemental levy.
Mhm.
So that's, I believe that's where it is probably most likely to be housed, where athletes are
Mm.
going to be looking for that, is a board approved manual.
Chairman Manning, I also just had another thought.
Oh boy, here we go.
No, just on this
Steve
policy.
Butler.
One of the things that, you know, we, for in-district students, they're required to also pay for their ASB cards. And that's not mentioned in here at all, whether they're required to pay, whether those other students are required to pay ASB cards. And so there is kind of an offset there where if they, you know, if the in-house students have to pay that, then it's not really a zero-sum game that, you know, that both are paying. So it would be nice to have that explicitly stated, whether they are required to or not.
Or have a conversation. about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Motion table.
We have a motion to table the fee schedule by trustee Godina. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Do we still want to make a committee or do we just
Probably meet virtually, which
would Mhm.
be probably easier for people. At least start having the conversation
Mm-hmm.
down the road.
Cause I know y'all have time.
Nothing but time.
I got time.
I got time. Do you want to be on the committee? I'll be on the committee.
Trustee on there, we can have up
I
to
could-
two before we have to put, do.
Yeah. I can do it.
So which two of you want to be on this committee?
Do you be on the committee?
I don't know. Do we have to be on the committee? I mean, we don't.
Okay.
I was just,
Uh-huh.
I was just offering it.
Right. Okay. We don't have to. Do
So many
You want just
committees.
you want to just talk about it? We're gonna just talk about it and come to a consensus?
I don't know. What do you guys think? So your motion to table, why did you want to table it?
I'd like to
Trustee
hear
Godina.
more, I'd like to hear more from
Halleck,
Mr. Halleck.
and look at all the numbers on one piece of paper.
The expert. He has a lot of knowledge, so I'd like to hear from him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next few weeks, school admin tend to be on vacation because they take these few weeks off.
What?
Yeah, so it'll be harder to get all the people perhaps. I don't know, admin.
So he can come in.
That's our next board meeting.
Is that our retreat?
No.
Oh,
28th.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Any further? So we're tabling it. Or do we want to do a committee?
Committee's
No.
always good. Say committee's always
Committee's
good
always good.
to have
Bounce around ideas.
ideas. I'm sure there's a patron out there that would like to be on that committee.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Chairman Manning and trustee, the ASB fee is, it's the same. So it was $50 for high school.
Okay. I'll be on the committee. I'll be one of the trustees.
I'm happy to do it if we want to.
You too.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
going to actually reach out to you and John.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm, that works for me.
Okay.
They will virtually reply,
Okay.
perhaps, or literally, maybe. It's hard to say.
Motion to table it.
Table. it.
Not yet.
Oh, we haven't
We
approved
haven't
yet.
voted.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we've been chatting. Yep. Any further discussion on the motion? We have a motion and a second to table the fee schedule until July 14. And in the interim, have a committee that will chew on options.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay, motion is tabled to the 14th. 2025-26 SRO contract, Dr. French.
Thank you, Chairman Manning, trustees. This is the final SRO agreement. It has, I appreciate the city working with us and the request to look at indemnification. They agreed to make the change so that both parties will be indemnified in the agreement. And so that was the only part that was changed in the contract from last week, was just the indemnification section.
Do we have the okay from?
I believe Miss White did look at it and approved. I mean, she had some concerns early on, but they pretty much made all the changes we requested, I believe.
That is correct. Okay. All right,
Any further comments, questions about the SRO contract? If not, I'll take a motion.
Chairman Manning, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 SRO contract.
Second.
Okay, trustee Basina and Godina with the first and second. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. IT surplus. Dr. French, how do you want to handle this? You just want to,
All right, Chairman Manning, trustees, we'd like to ask for your approval to surplus these IT items. Yeah, that's.
okay.
Excited about that.
Anything you want to say on this, Mr. Shore?
It's standard surplus items.
Okay.
Chairman
You
Manning,
got any big screens back there, Travis? Caleb, I'm sorry.
Chairman Manning, I make a motion to approve the IT surplus.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Pacina. Do we have a second?
Second.
Call it. What's the point?
Second and a third by trustees Godina and Robertson. I'm sorry, Fowler.
Butler.
I guess.
Yeah, we do.
We have the same hairstyle.
Any questions or comments? I had a question for Mr. Shore. Mr. Shore, do you got a minute? So thinking about the the one-to-one devices we have and things like that, do we have as we look, sort of long-term, the next couple of years, how are we able to pay for the one-to-one devices?
Chairman Manning, trustees of the board, that's a great question. So historically, we've purchased those devices with monies from the pandemic monies.
The Esther.
ESSER money, yes, thank you. So moving forward, that is kind of a big ticket item, so I'll have to work with Ms. Anderson to see how I will be able to budget those items in. Currently this year, we won't need to make that purchase. We have enough devices that we will be able to bypass that big purchase this year. However, next year we need to be thinking about renewing the rollover of the devices. So.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Shore? Thank you. Appreciate it. Anderson. Comment.
Chairman Manning, trustees, I would like to just add that we have tried to set aside money from our plant facility levy for technology items specific to instructional technologies. So, and like Mr. Shore mentioned, we've been able to buy quite a bit of it the last few years using ESSER funds. But given that we have modernization money that's going to help us with a lot of our capital improvement projects over the next few years, we will try to continue to set aside some money out of plant facilities to at least purchase the next roll of one-to-one devices, so that we don't have a gap.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate the information. All right. We had a motion and a second, correct? And a third technically. And at this time, all those in favor of supporting the IT surplus approving the IT surplus, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, we have an executive session slated next. Vice Chair Pacina.
Yes, Chairman Manning, I would like to make a motion to go into executive session as per Idaho Code 74-206 1B to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, individual agent, or public school student, employee 2025-06-09.
Okay, motion to move into executive session. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Second,
No. Roll call.
need second.
Second,
Still need a second.
Oh, yeah.
okay,
All right, fine.
we'll go second, Trustee
You did.
Butler,
Okay.
We're gonna trust you.
with the motion by Vice Chair Pacina. Madam Chair, can you call the roll?
Trustee
Madam
Trish
Clerk.
Robertson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Maricela Pacina.
Yes.
Chairman Travis Manning,
Yes.
Steve Manuel Godina,
Yes.
Trustee Andrew Butler.
Yes.
Okay, we are in executive session.
So as per Idaho Code 74-2061 1B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, individual agent, or public school student, employee number 2025-0609 was information only.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion to adjourn. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?